Alright guys, this is my second video on histograms, and so aptly named histogram 2. Make sure if you haven't seen the first video on histograms, make sure you have a look at that, because that one tells you how to draw a histogram. But let's jump straight in. So you can see we've already got a histogram here. We've got the frequency density, we got time in minutes. The question is talking about some information about time in minutes taken by a group of students to travel to college 1 week. So if I'm reading the table right, then it says that 20 students took between 0 and 20 minutes to get there. 30 students took between 20 and 30 minutes to get there. We don't know how many students took between 30 and 40, and so on. And it looks like 48 students took 60 to 100 minutes to get there. And the first thing they want us to do, use the histogram to complete the table. So obviously we've got some missing bits of data here. Well, let's draw our attention to the first problem that we've got. Look at the frequency density axis. There are no numbers on it. So that's a problem. Well, yeah, it is a problem. So we need to fix that problem first. Okay? And how we fix that problem, if you remember from my last video, we're going to need to use the frequency density. Now we know from the last video that the frequency density is equal to the frequency divided by the class width. I can rearrange this formula to say that my frequency, which is what this axis is requiring to fill out this table as they've asked us here, we need to find the two missing frequencies here. But we can use this formula to help us. And now I'm going to say something that you need to learn as well. The frequency, if I rearrange this formula, is equal to the frequency density multiplied by the class width. Okay, so this is very important to remember. I probably should let's rub that out and make it look a bit neater. So the frequency is equal to the frequency density multiplied by the class width. Okay, so this is very important, and we got that from just rearranging this formula here. Okay, so now that we've got that sorted, let's now inspect this graph to see what's going on. So you can see we've been given some information. Parts of the bars are missing. Well, some of the bars, I should say, are missing because they've now asked us to complete the histogram. But let's deal with this problem here first. Use information that you know. So for example, I've got 0 to 20 and it has a frequency of 20. I'm going to check to see if this information is already on the histogram. Well, 0 to 20 there, that is already on the histogram, and I've already got the frequency. What I want to know is what the frequency density is, or what number is here, because if I know this number, I can work out all the rest. Now we remember, as I've just said, frequency density is frequency divided by class width. For this bar that we've got here, the class width will be 20, and the frequency is also 20. So the class width 0 to 20 is 20, the frequency is 20. So that basically means that for that first bar, the frequency density of a frequency of 20 divided by a class width of 20 is going to be 1. Since I know that that frequency density is 1, it means that there is a 1 here. Right, let's just point that out properly. Right where this bar is, the frequency density is 1. I'll just say this again just to reinforce the point. Always make sure you check that the information you got here is on here already, and I've got that information. Remember that frequency density is frequency divided by the class width, and if you watch my first video, you'll know that class width is going to be the difference between these two numbers. So 20 take away 0 is 20, 20 divided by 20 is 1. Now that I know that this is 1, I can pretty much work out everything else, because now I know this has to be 2, because the same space I've got here, if I carry the same space here, it means that this is 2. This up here would be 3, this would be 4, and right at the top is going to be 5. So you see how important it is to then just use that information to find the first one. Now, it's not always going to be the first one. It can be any one along, which we might see in a separate slide. But now that I've got that, that makes life rather easy, because now I can probably go and try and work out these ones. Well, let's see if I can. The class interval for this is 30 to 40. Let's look at my graph. Oh yes, I do have 30 to 40 here. There it is. And this bar goes all the way up to what looks like 4.5. Let's just double check that. There's 4.1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, it goes to 4.5. Now, what do I need? I need the frequency. And remember I said here that to find the frequency, I multiply my frequency density by my class width. So, for this one, I'll probably just write it over here. So, the frequency for that bar, I will call it bar number 3, and I'll circle it there. The reason why I call it bar number 3 is because it's the third one along, okay? I'll call that bar number 3 as this bar here. So the frequency is equal to the frequency density multiplied by the class width. We've already seen that the frequency density is 4.5, which I've mentioned to you just now and showed you over here, 4.5. And then I'll multiply that by the class width. Well, that's really easy because it goes from 30 to 40, which means that the difference is going to be 10. Multiply that by 10 and you get 45. So it means that this is 45 in here. All right, let's have a look again. We've also got 40 to 60, so this is a class width of 20 this time. Let's see if we have this bar. Yes, we do. 40 to 60. Yeah, that's the bar here, and this looks like it goes up to a frequency density of 3. So I will now call this bar number 4 and say that the frequency of this bar is equal to the frequency density of 3 multiplied by a class width of 20. Just double check. So that's going to give me 60. It means that there are 60 students who came to school between 40 and 60 minutes. Okay, just double check again just to make sure. Frequency density is 3, class width is 20 from 40 to 60. So just like that, we have now answered this question, which is filling out the table. And we had to use information that we had from before in order to do that. All right. Now it says, use the table to complete the histogram. Well, when you look at the table, we've pretty much got this bar already, which is this first one, bar number 1. We haven't got bar number 2 because that goes between here from 20 to 30. Okay, so that's that one's missing, so we need to sort that one out. All right, so I'll just cause a quick bit of separation here. The only thing we need to know if you watch video number 1 on histograms is what the frequency density is, because I can already see it goes from 20 to 30. I just need to know how tall it is. So let's calculate that really quickly. Frequency density for that bar is the frequency divided by the class width. The frequency is 30 and the class width is 10 because the difference between 20 and 30 is 10. So the frequency is 30, class width is 10. That's going to be equal to a frequency density of 3. So it means that this bar goes this high and comes all the way down there. Okay, I'll pretty much, let me see, I might actually just make that, just color that in slightly just so you can see what I've just done. So everybody can see clearly that that's my new bar there. All right, lovely. Now, let's move on. The next missing bar that I've got is this last one here, because I've already got this one, I've got that one. We already established that these are my two bars here. The last one is missing, and it looks like the frequency is 48 and the frequency density for this one is going to be 40, because this one's going to go all the way down to 100. Yeah, 60 to 100. So let's calculate then. So the frequency density is equal to a frequency of 48 divided by a class width of 40. Okay, so that's going to work out to be grand ol 1.2. So here we go. I know I'm going all the way down to 100, frequency density of 1.2. If you look at this very carefully, I've got 10 little lines all the way between 1 and 2. So 1.2 will be the second line along. So here we go. I'm going to draw this free-handed. So second line along, all the way down to 100. Bring that down here. And just as I've done before, I'm just going to color this in so it's really clear. Not really edge to edge, but you get the idea. Okay, lovely. And just like that, that one is done. So now we've completed the histogram. We've got our second couple of marks. Happy with that. All right. On this next one here, what I'd like you to do is pause the video and see if you can have a go to answer the questions. You've got two questions to answer. Use the histogram to complete the table. Here's the histogram, and as you can see, there are no numbers on the frequency density axis here, but you've got enough information to then go find the two missing values in that table, and then once you finish, use the table to complete your histogram. So pause the video here and have a go, and then we'll work it all out in a minute. Okay, well, let's go. As you can see, I like reading the question to have some sort of context as to what I'm really doing. So it looks like Tommy grows tomatoes. The table shows the information of the weight in W kilograms of the tomatoes produced by each plant. So you can see that from Tommy's tomato plants, 5 of them had a weight of 5 to 10 kilos. 8 of them had a weight of 10 to 12 kilos, 6 of them had a weight of 12 to 16 kilos, and so on. As I said on the previous slide, my first problem to sort out is finding out what numbers go up here. Well, let's have a look at this first bar first. It looks like it goes from 5 to 10. Now, do I have that information on here? Yes, I do. I've got 5 to 10 and it has a frequency of 5. So that's my number of tomatoes. That's my frequency of 5. So what I want to know is, what is the frequency density for this bar? If I can figure that out, I can figure the rest out. Well, let's get calculating. So my frequency density is the frequency of 5 divided by the class width of also 5. Let's just double check that I've done that right. The frequency is 5. The class width is the difference between my class intervals, the difference between these two numbers, and the difference between 5 and 10 is 5. So it means that my frequency density is 1. Well, that tells me that right here, where this bar is, the height of this bar has to be 1. So I'm going to put that 1 in straight away. Now that I've got that, it only makes sense that if 0 to here is 1, then that has to be 2, that has to be 3, that has to be 4, and so on. So I'm just going to pop those in. So 2, 3, 4. There's no need to go higher than that. I might just want to mark these out so you are aware that's where 1 is, this is where 2 is, this is where 3 is, and that's where 4 is. Okay, well, that's a very big job done there, because now I can use this information to go and work out the 2 missing values. So I hope that you're going to get the answers I've got. I hope that you've already got this bit right at least. This bar, I will call it 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll call this bar number 4. It goes from 16 to 20, and I know that that's the missing one for here because this one goes from 16 to 20 there. So that has to be bar number 4. So over here, I'll do my calculation just as I did before. Bar number 4, I need the frequency, and the frequency is the frequency density multiplied by the class width. All right, or in other words, if you want, I should have said this to you before, but if you want, you can basically say, well, it's basically the area of this bar, because, you know, length times width if you want to, but that's completely up to you. But I'd much rather just say frequency density times class width, so you get used to that sort of language. Okay, anyway, let's go. So I'm trying to find the frequency. Now that I've got numbers here, I can see that the frequency density is 4, and the class width of the difference between 16 and 20 is also 4, so that's going to be 4 down here. So here we go. That gives me frequency density of 4, class width of 4, means that the frequency is 16. So 16 goes in there. Hope you had 16 when you did yours. And for the last one, this is bar number 5 now. Frequency is frequency density multiplied by the class width. Let's have a look and see what we've got here. The frequency density for this last one, 20 to 25, check it, 20 to 25. Well, let's trace this across here. It looks like the frequency density is 2, and the class width of 20 to 25 is 5. So let's pop those numbers in. Frequency density of 2, class width of 5 means that the frequency is going to be 10. Frequency is 10 there. Right. I hope you got a frequency of 10 when you paused the video and did yours. So just like that then, I'm happy we've answered that question. Let's move on to the last one then. Use the table to complete the histogram. Well, let's deal with some issues first. 0 to 5. There are no plants up here that has 0 to 5. This is a trick. You might be thinking to yourself, well, I might need to put something here. You don't need to put anything there. Just completely ignore that. Yeah, so there's nothing there. So 5 to 10, that's bar number 1. We've already got that one. 10 to 12, we don't have that one at all. And bearing in mind, let me mark this off. This is 10. We've got 10 here. Try to work the scale out. If this is 15 on this line here, then it must mean that we're counting in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope you can see my dots. So that's 11 here. This is 12 there. Okay, so that's how far we're going. All right, so that's 10 to 12. And it has a frequency of 8. So let's separate my calculations now, because I'm now doing something completely different. Obviously, if you haven't guessed yet, it's the frequency density I need, because I need to know how tall that bar goes. So frequency density then is frequency over class width, and the frequency for that second bar is 8. The class width is 2. Just double check. Frequency is 8. Class width is the difference between there of 2, and that's going to give us 4. So it means that this bar goes all the way up to 4. Well, let's draw it in. I'm just going to draw it free-handed to save time. So all the way up to 4. And yes, it's going to look a little bit dodgy, but that's fine. You get the idea. You make sure you draw yours neat. Okay. So we sorted that one out. The next bar that's missing is the bar that goes from 12 to 16, 12 to 16 over there. 12 to 16 is all the way up to this black one here now, so that's fine. And so we need to calculate the frequency density. So frequency density is frequency, which is 6, divided by a class width of 4, and that's going to be 1.5 there. So let's double check. Frequency is 6, class width is the difference between 12 and 16, that's going to be 4, and it looks like this goes up to 1.5, so it should be just about there. So exactly halfway is going to be in a space, and that's the space there, and that's going to be the next one. All right, and just like that, we have finished that question. So I hope that when you did yours looked exactly like that, and you are happy with your calculations. All right, so this concludes the second video on histograms. And there is one last video where you use histograms now to answer, some pretty tricky questions. So have a look out for that one.